All right, so let's take a look. Take this off. Let's take a look at these reading questions. And I want to make sure that you understand in particular why they look the way they look already. Because hopefully you can see there's questions that are italicized, and then there's questions that are just regular print. The italicized questions are questions you have to think about. Okay? You also find a lot if you look at number 3 where I say blah, 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 blah. That means blah, 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 blah. However, because again, the man that writes this book, Kagan, has a definite point of view and a way that he presents material. So usually when I say blah, 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 I'm like, right, Kagan, yeah, keep talking. Psst, that's pointless, don't even read it. Okay? The entire chapter, big picture, is summarizing the paragraph that starts the 15th century also. So what I'm saying is, you're given a whole lot of words when you could have just given me that paragraph. So that's what the blah, blah, blah means. Okay? So italicized means it's stuff you have to think about. You're not going to find the answer directly in the reading. When you get to section 1, what was Jacob Burckhardt's opinion of the Renaissance? That you're going to find in the reading. It's directly there. You're pulling that right from the book. I'm not asking you to rephrase it. I'm not asking you to think about it differently. And again, these reading questions make you do the 2 important things. Comprehensive, I got to read something and find the answer. And then I got to think about what I read. Does that make sense? So that's the way these will be always. Sometimes I don't even ask you, let me see if I can find one where I'm being goofy. I am pretty goofy in all of these. Okay, so if you flip the page, number 6, it says, what family dominated Florence? And again, I don't need you to say the family that dominated Florence was. Just put the name. Okay? These are reading questions. This is not like, I don't want to keep saying not like world history. I know you can write complete sentences. Reading questions are not required complete sentences, except in the ones where you're thinking. So when you're pulling the information out of the book, just write the answer. Right? So Florence controlled by the Medicis, just so that you know. But then under number 6, you see where I say, okay, just get the major idea of this muddled section, meaning I don't like what Kagan's right. The whole point of this section is summed up by the last paragraph, and this last sentence should be burned in your brain. So burn it. Then I say, wow, great introduction to humanism, but know the definition at the beginning of humanism. So question number 7 is what I was drawing your attention to. Number 7 makes you do 2 things. In what language did Petrarch, Dante, and I never can say his name, Boccario write? Okay, this will be confusing because they all wrote in a different language. Anybody want to take a guess what language they wrote in? Starts with a V. It's the language that you write in of which you speak. Starts with a V. Vernacular. Vernacular. I know you know that word. I taught you that word. Vernacular. Right? So, it's vernacular. They write in the vernacular. What was new about that? That's what you have to think about. Okay? Renaissance art, it just says we'll cover this in class. No questions about that. Please, 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 and this is again, look at number 12. How widespread was slavery in Italy? And then I tell you to the side, the AP test writers love. I could have filled up 2 pages of love to ask you about this question. Because how many of you think that slavery, have ever thought about slavery in Italy? Or slavery in Europe? We don't, do we? Nope. So guess what? They like to ask you those questions. Our college board, and I'm going to always assume at this point we're taking the regular test. The test is divided into 2 parts. The multiple choice, which is the test writers, and the writing part. The multiple choice is written by test writers that the college board has, and they write those. The writing parts, the prompts, are written by teachers that they hire to write. So the writing prompts, they're awesome. Teachers also grade those. They're awesome. The multiple choice, those are horrible, awful, terrible people that do their best to try to confuse you. Because your directions to the multiple choice are as follows. Choose the best answer. Not the correct, but the best. So what does that mean? There's a lot that could be answered, and you gotta pick the best one, and they're horrible. So, yeah, I'm just gonna be honest. So number 12, I will have that often. And this is why you keep these. This is why, even though this is an assignment, it's also a study tool. I did not put on your list. Did I put on your list little flags, like the little, like these little things? I don't know that I did. They're the little tabs that you can put. These will be your best friend. Those of you that have the means and the necessary to go buy, it could be these. It could be these cute little flippy ones. These ones that look like this. Just little Post-it tab notes. Yes, ma'am.
Is it also like the ones that are on the...
Do what?
Is it like the ones that are on the...
Well, no, they're just like, they're, if you go to where Post-it notes are, I mean, they're Post-it notes.
Oh,
But you could use anything. Yeah,
Go in there.
you could do that,
Okay.
the little tabs. But something to draw your attention to, like question number 12. Because that's what I said when you don't throw anything away. You need to keep these things. And that's why, again, you'll need a first semester binder and a second semester binder, or either which way. Again, if you look at the bottom, too much detail in this section. Just get big picture. You don't need to read, and I'm telling you, don't read all of it. Skim it. Don't bust your head against the wall trying to figure out. I tried to tell you all throughout this. It follows each one. And then again, hopefully you understand. Now, this year I only have 13 of you, but I cannot possibly read all the answers to these and grade them. I can't, but I'm just going to tell you, I don't. Here's what I do. I pick out about 7 to 8 important questions that I think are really important, like question number 12, and that's the answer I'm going to read. And I feel like I need to say that up front to you because I promise you always that I grade everything you do, and I grade everything you do, but I cannot grade all, I don't even know how many there are, 40 questions. I scan, like I'm going to look, like all these, what events bookend the Renaissance, I know what that is. I'm going to scan, but then I have particular questions that I'm going to draw my attention to. And as long as you get most of those right, you'll get your 20 points. But those are the questions, and they always are different. But pretty shortly, you should be able to figure out which ones I think are important. Either by A, listening to the lectures in class, or B, really paying attention to what types of questions. Anytime I ask a question that says like to what extent or that kind of thing, you always know that that's going to be on the test. Okay? Questions about that? All right, so those are reading questions. We'll have those every time. Again, they follow the textbook right in order. You can go through those. Again, you do not need to answer in complete sentences unless, again, your brain works that way. You don't have to. You don't have to do that. All right, the next set of assignments I do not want you to start on. It's one of the assignments that we will do in class where it says lesson 1 in class. So that's what we'll do in class. And there's 2 parts of it. There's actually the assignment, which is the skinny part, and then there's the big giant part that, the big giant handout. So there's 2 things, information and then the worksheet. But don't start on this until, because we're going to do this together in class. Because this is an important part of the assignment. Yes.
Do you care if we take the staples off?
Do you care what? Nope, I do not. Don't take it out of the worksheet, because that,
Okay,
yeah. But if you want to take it out of the lesson 1. Okay, so very quickly, before you put it away, just so that you don't get freaked out, this whole entire thing is not work. This is just information, right? The worksheet that you're doing, if you just look at that, it looks huge, but it's not really huge. The back two things are just circling yes or, multiple choice questions, okay? We'll do this in class together, for the most part, not all of it, you'll have a little bit, but we'll walk through this whole entire thing in class together, so don't freak out about that either. I'm walking over to this box over here, hopefully before the end of the week, this will say AP Euro. I put all the extra copies in here. That's extra copies if my meat freaks start writing and they mess up and they want another copy. I won't always have this extra many. I won't always have this many extra, but they'll always be like, there's already a calendar, extra calendars in here. If you're absent, I will clip your stuff together and stick it over here. So that's where they're always at. Or if you're at school and your binder's at home and you want to get started on stuff, yeah, you could do that as well. All right, I'm going to save. And then we got one last thing. This is a new assignment. I've never done this assignment before, but it was one of the positive things that came out of the goofy way we had to take the AP exam this May. So if you aren't aware, the AP exam that they took in May just consisted of doing one thing, and that is writing an essay, a document-based question essay, which is called the DBQ. Some of my kids were ecstatic, like that. I don't think they thought the whole thing through, like, woo, one question. But one question determined if you passed or failed. Normally, you have a balance of 4 things that give you your score: the multiple choice, the short answer, the DBQ, and the long essay. Those are the 4 things that you're going to do in May. So if you're really good at writing, you can kind of like do halfway well on the multiple choice. If you're not so good at writing, you have to do awesome at the multiple choice. There are 54 multiple choice. You only need to get about 30. You get 30 of them, which is a C. You get 30 of them. You do well on the short answer. You do well on the DBQ. You do well, you're good. Conversely, if that is your strong suit, taking tests, remembering all that stuff, and you're up there in that range of, man, I got like 45 of them, you don't have to do as well in the writing. But when you're graded on one question, and I think towards the end, that started to sink in, like, yeah, one question. So because it was online, the College Board assumed, rightly so, that students are going to have access to their materials. But you still only had 45 minutes. So you couldn't go looking through your giant binder. So I came up with cheat sheets, which are now a regular assignment because I'm like, they are awesome. Except I think I'm still calling it a cheat sheet. Is that what it says on your calendar, a cheat sheet? Okay, I'm still calling it a cheat sheet, but it's not that. I just came up with, so I got to get my kids a way to access a lot of information really quickly. How can I do that? So I came up with the ever popular T-chart and filling out a piece of paper. And I will tell you that every topic that we did for both my Euro and US, we did a cheat sheet for. So all they had to do was pull this out. Now you're not going to be able to do this on the exam. But what it does give you is study material. And so this one will be the Renaissance. And as I pass it out, let me talk about what that is. So the first thing you're going to do is a time period, and that is a date. Now we don't memorize dates. The College Board is never going to ask you that. But you need to know a sequence of events. You need to know a timeline, like what came first. Then we've got positives and negatives. And again, these are the consequences. What are the positive things that came out of the Renaissance? What were the negative things? A couple of facts. Important people, who those people are. And then on the back, you can see context. And you don't know how to do this yet, so don't worry. What happened before? Consequences. What were the results? And then just a timeline. Again, This is a cheat sheet. Bullet points, as much information as you want. This is, and I again don't like saying this, but this is more or less a completion grade as long as you complete it to an AP quality. So not everybody's is going to be the same. I can never do bullet points. I just can't. My brain doesn't think that way. I'm always writing in complete sentences. So yours doesn't have to look the same as someone else's and get full credit. But I need to be able to, if you put bullet points, I need to be able to understand it as well. You need to understand it so that when we start studying in April, you can flip this thing out and you can say, oh yeah, the Medici, I remember everything about them. They're from Florence. Your timeline is really important, what you put. And again, we don't need to know dates. We have to know sequence of events, right? So, for instance, I was reading in APUSH about Manifest Destiny. And Manifest Destiny happened in the 1840s in the United States history. Civil War hasn't happened yet. None of that stuff has happened yet. But if you don't know where Manifest Destiny occurs, you start throwing in all kinds of stuff. Now, it never counts against you, but it doesn't count for you. You need to know the order of events, yes. But Ben, did I answer your question?
No.
What was it, sweetie?
Are we, like, for the essay, are we gonna type that, or?
No, it's always handwritten. If it's in that, if the way that we take it always normally, everything's written by hand, which is why, as I said, we don't do anything in Canvas. Because if we're preparing to take the exam like we're gonna take in May, everything is written down. And so we're gonna continue to work like everything is written down. Yes?
Is this a handout?
Is it what?
Is this a handout? I'm trying to figure
Yes.
out.
Yeah. No, this is not a handout. This is homework. A handout's going to be something like the lesson 1 thing. That's a handout. Okay. All right. So the other thing that I would encourage you with this, that I encourage my students to do, and I got to make sure I get Abby Fadenhauer, is again, color. Because if this becomes a study sheet and you've just got it filled with stuff, pictures. Those of you that are visual, draw a picture of something. Draw a picture of the Mona Lisa. Draw a picture of the Ninja Turtles. So instead of remembering Donatello, Raphael, draw the Ninja Turtles. So this is what you want it to be to help you study. Okay? This was the only positive thing that came out of that, is that I thought of this. And make sure you keep these, and I would also number them or put them in some kind of order so that there's an order to what we do with these. Okay? All right, so let's, so yesterday my anxiety was from the bells. That was mostly what was sending me over the edge, was that I just didn't know when class was over, doing the desk. I'm trying to be better now. Like, it's okay. I don't do well with change. Never have. Did I tell you my lunch changed for the first time? I have C lunch for the first time in 17 years. Thankfully, my boss knows me really well, and she called me really early, like the middle of July, and said, Mrs. Norris? I'm like, what? Like, huh? I have to tell you, your lunch has changed. I'm like, oh, really? Why? It's a very good reason. It's for an issue with the student, so I completely, 100% understand. I have a problem with it. And I don't have a problem with C lunch. I just have a problem with change. I don't do well with change. We've lived in our house that we live in now since, when did we move here? 2000. So I've lived in the house 20 years. I've never lived any place 20 years in my life. And my children always make fun of me because they say, Mom, do you know the furniture is in the exact same spot? Now, I've got new furniture, but it's in the exact same spot as it is when the movers came in. Yes, it is, and it's not moving. I don't move around. I'm not a furniture changer person. All you people that like rearrange your rooms all the time, nope, not me. My underwear drawer is still my underwear drawer, and it's been my underwear drawer for 20 plus years, and I'll never change. I don't like change. So, I don't. So, what time do we get out of here? 10:50. All right, so we got a couple minutes to kind of get started on our notes. Just a little bit so that you can kind of see what class will look like, how we'll go, and I'm not going to go far, so don't worry if you don't have all your stuff or you don't have the little flags or the notes or anything. So we'll talk about when we look and go through our notes, what I will do and then what you will do. At the top of your notes, many AP courses cover the entire Renaissance from 1300 to 1600. AP exam only starts 1450. So therefore, I start at 1450. I am not going to give you information that is pointless. That's why, is there chapter 9 in the textbook? There's a whole bunch of stuff before, right? The Middle Ages. Some of you might have wanted to read it. It's not on the exam. I'm not giving you that information. Just like the exam stops at the fall of communism, which is 1990, there's a whole lot of stuff that happened in Europe afterwards. I'm not teaching it. Our goal is to pass the exam. I'm not going to fill your head with stuff that is not necessary. Okay? Oh, other positive part is after May 7th, when we take the exam, we don't do anything else. We don't do anything. So this class becomes study hall, whatever you need it to be. Okay? You've worked since, well, you didn't work since summer, but most of my previous years, they start their assignment in June, so we'll just pretend that you did. All right, so I always give you a little bit of background. Renaissance is considered the beginning of modern Europe. That is an important statement. What begins modern Europe? The Renaissance, 1450. That should also give you pause like, ooh, modern European history starts in 1450? Is there any white Europeans on the continent of North America in 1450? That'd be a no. That'd be a no. So that's how long European history is. That's why they poo-paw us like 100 years. That's like a blink of an eye. We have buildings that were built in the 900s that we still use and go in. Poo-paw your 1776 stuff. So modern history, European history begins with European history. And you should know that, like for college, if you're going to take extra history classes, there's usually a Western Civ 1 and a Western Civ 2, and that dividing line is 1450. It also should be important as we move through this to note how much of history's decision making is based on Europe and based on white Europeans, like how we measure time, how we quantify success and failures. Most all of it's going to be based on white Europeans and how that, and for the most part, it is because the largest time period that we're going to cover, Europe controlled the world. And we're even going to condense that down even further. France. France controls the world for a long time, like 200 years. France controls the world. Controls it. Everybody speaks French. All these movies you watch with Queen Elizabeth I speaking English, she spoke French. All courts spoke French. It controlled the world. So now what we have to figure out is, yes.
So they controlled it, and then
They controlled it politically, culturally, economically.
and then they entered wars.
The what?
Then they entered wars and failed, right?
Oh, they don't fail for a long time with wars. They don't fail for a really long time with wars. Louis XIV builds the most powerful standing army in the world. Then a couple of Russians will do that, but yeah, so that will be. Renaissance, we have that date, 1300s to 1600s. And under B3 in England, the Renaissance didn't begin until the 16th century. Again, we have to figure out why. So this is the other part of what is important for AP Euro, and that you will, as a student, get instruction from me all the time. Simply stating a fact doesn't work. So if you're going to state the fact the Renaissance didn't begin in the 16th century in England, or until the 16th century in England, it should be followed by a because. Because why? And we'll figure that out. You don't know that yet, but we'll figure that out. So that will be one of the things that will be the hardest part of writing in this class, is you've always just been used to presenting facts.
which is awesome. But now you have to think, why is that a fact? So I will tell you, and I'll say this often, unless you've written one of these books on my shelf, you can't just state facts. You have to present evidence as to why that is a fact. So in this class, we aren't concerned about facts, we're concerned about why is that a fact? Well, that's really strange. Why did everybody else in Europe get to experience the Renaissance when they did, except England? One of them is easy geography, right? They're separate, right? But there's much more that was going on in England that kept them from having a Renaissance. And that's the stuff that we dig our heads into and our minds into, which is the awesome part. The why. Why is that way? Origins of the Renaissance. And again, much like I stated in world history often, if you were living during this time period, you did not know you were living in a Renaissance. Renaissance means rebirth. It's what historians give that title when we study history. Studying history is hard enough, but these writers of history decided we're going to chunk it and give it names. So everything... Oh. Yes. What is it? Yes. Yes. AST. Can I come down and try to look at it? Because off the top of my head, I cannot figure that out either. Okay, I'll come down and try and get there and look at it. Okay. All right, thanks, Katie. I'll come down. Bye-bye. When you sign up to see the counselor, make sure you write it. Who else in our...
It was like Adrian and Connor.
Adrian crossed his name off because he just thought he was signing up for something.
I think Audrey would next step.
Audrey signed up. She got Audrey. She got Connor, and then she said there's this name like IST. Could it be Asia?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go look at. Sorry, we shouldn't be discussing this in front of everybody. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, Adrian just signed it because he thought we were just signing up for stuff. I'm like, do you need that? No. So yes, Ben.
What all and what type of countries include Europe?
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that, and that's a very good question about when we talk. We'll just pause right here and do that because that's a good question. Okay, so when we talk about Europe, what does that mean? Europe is divided into Western Europe. I don't draw well, so I just make boxes. Okay? So this is Europe. England. And I'm going to do it as it looks for the most of the time that we're studying, okay? So it's not going to, there's going to be stuff up here that are not countries anymore. This is Scotland and Ireland. At this point, and for most of the time until we get to King James after Elizabeth I, it's England, Scotland, Ireland. There's not a Great Britain, there's not a UK. They're each individual countries. When King James becomes, after Elizabeth I, because he is two things. He's King James IV of Scotland and King James I of England. So when he becomes England, he combines those titles together and that becomes Great Britain. And then as we get close to the 20th century, we get the UK. All right, so...
And this is as 1450.
Yeah, this will be for most. Sorry about those of you that are drawing. I'm going to make a rectangle down here. And I'm going to make a rectangle down here. Okay, this, Portugal, Spain. One of the most horrible things that you used to have to do in your summer assignment was a map. And I might make us still do a map, just saying. Does everybody have blank paper somewhere to do this on? Do you want a piece of blank paper? Or is everybody okay? You can go grab something from over there if you want to write on the back. Hang on. Don't move yet. Wait until I get the paper out. If anybody wants a piece of white paper, there you go. Just make sure you get your mask on before you walk around. All right. So the reason I draw this, and I spell horribly, this peninsula, because this is water, this peninsula is known as the Iberian, and I'm sure that's not spelled right, peninsula. The reason I put this up here is because sometimes the College Board will ask you multiple choice questions about the Iberian Peninsula. It's Spain. So that's the Iberian Peninsula. France, oops. Okay, France, easy. This thing I have marked off, this is referred to as the Low Countries. So if you know anything about geography or anything at all about Holland, what do you know about it? It's under the water, right? They got all these dikes, the wooden shoes they wear because there's water everywhere. So that's just referred to as the Low Countries. There are all those countries at the top: Netherlands, Fleming, Denmark, Holland. All of those names are interchangeable. They'll be called all different things at the same time. Thanks for asking an awesome question, Ben. Okay? I'm going to move over here. This is Russia. It's giant. This is Poland. And Poland is a weird place. If you looked on a map made in 1880, oh my God, let's go, 1870, Poland would not exist. It's the reason why the United States has a lot of Polish people. If you looked at a map of 1870, there's not a country called Poland. It ceased to exist. It got divided up, and Prussia took part of it, Austria took part of it, and Russia took part of it. Poland has no natural borders, so it's easy to invade. Okay? Obviously, I hope you know this is Italy. And there's going to be this big thing called Austrian Habsburg Empire. And these are lots of little countries in here.
So, what is Russia and Poland?
What?
What is Russia and Poland a part of?
I'll do that at the end. I'm going to divide this into what we're going to end up with is Western Europe, Central Europe, and Eastern Europe. And I'll tell you that last so we don't get too confused. Okay, the Austrian Habsburg Empire, it's an empire. And the definition of an empire is a big territory that governs lots of other little territories. So in here, and you don't need to know any of these names, in here is like Czechoslovakia, Transylvania, Romania, Serbia, Herzegovina, Croatia, and I know, it's huge. The important thing to know about the Austrian Habsburg Empire, because it's the only one we're calling an empire, is if you think of each one of these circles, it's a different country with a different language, with a different religion, with a different culture. It's hard to rule an empire. I also tell you, Austria is like Germany. They speak German. There's no Austrian language, as some famous politician tried to tell us. They're German. They're German heritage. But this is an empire. Notice so far that's the only one there. This is a difficult part to govern and hold on to. Now, modern day right here is a country called Germany. It doesn't exist. Germany is not a country until 1880. So if you have German heritage and they came here before 1880, they did not come from Germany because there wasn't a Germany. They came from Bavaria, Prussia, Pomerania, Bohemia, because there's not a Germany. Most everyone that's German, which is probably everybody in this room, somewhere you've got some. If you lived in Sullivan County, you've been here a long time, and even if your last name isn't Burkhart, you came from Germany. Because this is a strong German. What time do you get out? 10?
50.
10:50? What?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Crap-a-doodle. Crap-a-doodle. Okay. This is a gazillion. And this is Germanic principalities. I don't know how to spell it. Okay. This is Central Europe, or this is Western Europe. Central, Eastern. Can you guys do me a favor and just put a paper towel on top of your desk so I remember where you are seated and I will clean your desk? So when we talk about Europe, Western Europe is the place